Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today I titled this message, Another Trial Ahead. Be obedient or be disobedient. Another trial ahead. You have a choice. You can be obedient or be disobedient. There are those groups out there who will not encourage you to do anything that is righteous, true, anything that sounds a little bit spiritual. There are those individuals who will fight up against you when it comes to truth. There are those people who have a problem with anything that is more sophisticated, anyone who's more knowledgeable. These are individuals who are always having this war with self as well as with others, because they simply don't want to be obedient. They don't want to listen. They pride themselves on being rebellious. They pride themselves on going against authority. They enjoy battling up against all things tradition, even if that tradition is good for the group as well as themselves. And when we sit back and we think about these sorts of things with some of these individuals in our family and elsewhere, we can be easily dismayed. Sometimes we can even go into a depression because we get so tired of having to fight with disobedient people who pride themselves on being stubborn, rebellious, and you know the rest. But our faith, though, is in the one true God, because we know that if we are faithful to him, of course, he'll be faithful to us. We also know, too, that it is never a good idea to be that arrogant one, that one who thinks he or she knows so much, because, well, you have a way of falling flat on your face sooner or later, right? But when we have these individuals, though, that are around us, sometimes their pride, their arrogance, their rebellion, their unfaithfulness, and all of these other negative things have a way of rubbing off on us, okay? Maybe the enemy might not attack our personality, right? Because, well, we're stronger than that. We're not going to fall into the negativity with some individuals. We're still going to stay positive. But what if the enemy starts messing around with your atmosphere, with your money, with the people that are close to you? Okay, using those individuals who are stubborn, rebellious, prideful. Now what, Lord? Now what? We have some disobedient people who have brought about many storms in our lives. Okay. And then we had to be the ones to buy the raincoat, buy the umbrella. We had to buy the rain boots. We had to do everything to safeguard ourselves. We had to do everything to pick ourselves up out of whatever we got ourselves into because of someone else's drama, somebody else's issues, somebody who did not want to listen and obey the one true God who they claim they believe in. But if you believe in God, then you're going to listen to what he says through the scriptures, through the people who know more than what we know, right? We're going to pay attention to the signs and the wonders. We're going to do what it takes, right? Because, well, I believe in God. Well, the one who claims to believe, that's all they're doing. That's all they're doing is just using lip service. They do not really believe. Part of disobedience is unbelief and unfaithfulness. And then, of course, we see the fruit or lack thereof on that person's tree. And the fruit that is on the tree is usually spoiled. They can say that they believe all they want, saint, as well as sinner. They can say that they trust in God all they want. But if the storm is coming, let's see how much you really trust in the Lord. Let's go to the scriptures, shall we? Acts 27:13 through 26. I'm reading out of the New International Version, and by all means, you can use the King James, New King James. It's all good. The point is that I want this story to bring some light to some people, okay? Because once again, people are out here to advise, right? You might be that one. And then what happens when people don't follow advice? Well, negative things tend to happen. When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity, so they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Quada, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together. Because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis, they lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. Now notice, there's money basically being thrown overboard because they said that they had to throw cargo. Okay? When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, listen up, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete or Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss." Now, let me stop right there. How many times have you told someone or someone told you, you should have taken my advice? I'm trying to give you a warning. All I'm trying to do is help you out. If you don't want any problems, here's what you need to do. Fill out this document. Make sure you bring this along. Don't wait until the last minute. Be on time. Pick up the phone and call A, B, and C. Don't delay. If you keep sitting at home doing A, B, and C, you're not going to get D, E, and F. All right now, some of you all, you get the picture. But when we're disobedient, when we don't follow advice, sometimes we make it hard for ourselves. Other times we are inconveniencing people. We could have got some things done, but we refuse to get some things done because, well, I don't feel like it, which leads me into another message that deals with the believer who is all about his or her feelings. His or her feelings come before the Lord. But I won't get into that message in this audio, but I would like for you to look for it in another audio. Now, Paul gave advice. The men didn't listen. They went through all of those issues, had to dump some things out. Now, here's another example. Jonah 1:4-10. NIV version. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea. Here we go, a wind again. Back in those days, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, you name it, they existed. And you noticed in that last scripture, they named that storm northeaster, right? Man is still naming storms. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. Notice, they all cried out to their own God. I'm sure there were plenty of people when those different storms took place, they were crying out to their different gods, and some didn't even call out to a god. They just said, oh, S-H-I-T, oh, H-E-L-L. They just said all sorts of curse words, right? Curse words can't help you, and neither can gods. Gods that the one true God wouldn't even so much as look at, tell us about, or anything else. But people will do what they do, won't they? Okay, so all these sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God, and they threw, here we go again, the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish." You see, that captain wouldn't have bothered Jonah. Okay, if all those other gods had worked, come on. Some of you all, you wouldn't have to call on the one true God if that other God that some folks was paying so close attention to had worked. Some of you all would have never accepted Jesus as your personal Lord and Savior if mama and daddy, who you consider to be gods in your life, relatives and whoever else would have come through for you. Come on, let's just be honest. Some people don't come to God until everything else doesn't work. We already threw the cargo over the ship. You already called out to your own gods. Oh, what about this Jonah? Let's go down here and see. Oh, what he has to say. Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us so that we will not perish. Then the sailors said to each other, come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity. Uh-oh. Some folks, they'll use a little witchcraft on some people. In a minute, let me see. Wait a minute. Hold up. We got a problem. Because I know my God typically works in this situation. Normally my spells and my incantations and my chants and everything else work. Who is it that is causing these problems? Ooh, you see? So they're casting these lots because they need to find out what is going on. Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity. And don't you know, if this didn't work, they cast lots and the lot fell on Jonah. Sometimes God allows certain things to happen, even through those things that he warns us that we should not be tinkering with. Jonah. Somebody got a Jonah in their house right now. I know that in personal experience, and I'm not going to get into detail, but yes, honey. Oh, I know all about Jonah. And I'm going to leave it at that. So the lots fell on Jonah. So they asked him, tell us, who's responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you? They had a lot of questions for this man, right? Because, see, any other time we wouldn't have had these problems, but then this man showed up. You see, I'm going to tell you, when all these storms started taking place, I couldn't help but ask, okay, what's going on in this particular state and who is responsible? Because you see, we know that God, he has his natural disasters, but man, he has his man-made disaster. And his man-made disaster is either before the natural disaster, after the natural disaster, during the natural disaster, or it's all of the above. But man always got his hand in something. And we see that when we see that 6 come up. We see that some of the individuals who get into all sorts of numerals and they're studying them and so forth. Oh, man always shows up, doesn't he, in these storms? And man is always up to no good. There's always some kind of darkness. Some of you all who are very spiritual, those who pay attention to signs, visions, and wonders, notice there's always darkness around. Yeah, there's light at some point, but usually there's a very thick heaviness of darkness because man messing around with God or messing around with the people of God. So Jonah, what is your country? From what people are you? He answered, I am a Hebrew and I worship the Lord. Oh, here we go. I am a Hebrew and I worship the Lord, Jonah says, the God of heaven who made the sea and the dry land. Well, for some people, even nowadays, when you say this sort of thing, this terrifies them. It makes them nervous. And this was the case with these sailors. This terrified them and they asked, what have you done? They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. Sometimes people, they already tell you, I'm not as good with the Lord as I used to be. I'm not as close as I once was. I got some issue with the Lord. Yes, I know I backslid. I used to be one of service, but not anymore. Yes, and because you are not where you used to be, this is why we got these problems. I told you I know Jonah. Oh, come on now. God gave Jonah a commandment, and I don't really want to do that. Now, I gave you some food for thought. I'm inspiring some of you all to just do something with this message in such a way where it resonates with some people in your congregation, because you got some individuals who they don't listen to advice. They don't. And then you got others who do, and they shouldn't be punished. They shouldn't be punished because they are listening. They are obeying. They are doing what God has commanded. They are not Jonas. And they shouldn't have to sit for 40 minutes to an hour plus listening to a rant because there's a select few who don't want to do what's right on the staff. No, that message should be behind closed doors. That message should be with that group of folks who refuse to listen to the commandments of the Lord. And if they don't want to listen, then throw Jonah overboard. And some of you all, that's why some of these messages keep coming back to letting go of some people, right? Going low contact, no contact. You done had the psychologist tell you. You done had some people use their personal experiences all across this internet. Some of you all, you go on these different YouTube pages, leaving all sorts of comments. Some folks know you by name because you're always on different people's channels. But are you letting go? Are you moving on, or are you still just coping, just getting by? Where is your plan? Be obedient. The plan was given to you in some of those audios. The plan was given to you in some of those videos. These people have gone through the fires. They've gone through the storm. They threw their cargo over. They served all sorts of gods. Some of them was drug addicted, alcohol addicted. And they come on and they say, I don't want you to go through what I went through. Here's what you need to do. Come on. And if you're obedient, then God is with you every step of the way. But if you're disobedient, then you can't help but fall victim to the enemy's schemes. There were people that were warned in advance. The storm is coming. There's death coming. No, this isn't a time of prosperity. Forget what those mainstream ministers said. And they're still telling you this. I'm telling you, some of you all this. It's time. Some of you all, you got it in your spirit. I got to leave. I got to pack up. I got to move. Others said, oh no, I'm supposed to be putting some sandbags and putting up, some things around my windows and so forth because of what I heard from the reputable sources. Okay. The ones in my state who told me this is what's going to happen and that's what's going to happen. Others said you got to make sure that you got food. Others said that you got to make sure that you save at least 6 months to a year's salary. No, the storm hasn't come for some people and it doesn't plan on coming for a long time. But when you see a lot of people going through like what they're going through, that's a clear indication that, I better get started. I better start doing what I need to do. Do I have my insurance in place? Do I have some money saved up? Do I have a place to go in the event that something happens? Lord Jesus. People are always saying things like, I'm just going to go back home. Well, what happens if they don't want you to come back home? Because they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with. That's why a lot of people, they're hesitant about opening up their doors because they got their own issues. No, I don't want to see you right now. You don't know what I'm going through. No, I don't want to talk to you right now. I got all these other things that I'm dealing with. I told you to take care of yourself, daughter. I told you to take care of yourself, son. I told you that there was going to be some storms ahead because of who you married. God warned some people, you're unequally yoked. They said, it's okay. It's all right. Because I'll just go to the Lord and pray. I'll just pray that man to church. I'll just pray that woman to church. Yeah, that works for some people. It don't work for all people. There's a woman who told me that she's been going on about 40 years plus marriage. And that man, he's not budging. She comes to church by herself all the time. Matter of fact, he moved to some other country. And so they got this long distance relationship. Some of you all, you got to understand that when the writing is on the wall to be obedient and do these different things that are going to help you, not hurt you, just do them. All that fighting up against what it is that the Lord is leading people to say and do it's only going to cause problems for you later on. Eat healthy. Why should I eat healthy? Because there's going to come a time where maybe you might be that one that's going through and you're going to have to walk a long time. It would make sense to get your health right for that long walk ahead. It's not going to always be a Coast Guard that's around. It's not going to always be somebody that's going to come and take you where you need to go. People, sometimes they go through some things and then they're not there. Sometimes storms come, right? Look at all those people that had to wade through that water. You never know what might happen. So listening to the doctor, following instruction so that you don't be the one that's up there heavy breathing and, oh, I might have a heart attack and all that because you were eating unhealthy. You didn't bother to exercise. And now it's time to walk. Now it's time to wade through the water. Now it's time to help some other people. Oh, I can't. I can't do it. Come on. Disobedience. I told you, some of you all, if you haven't listened to Disobedience Leads to Death, you need to. The death toll is increasing. And what is also increasing is the number of folks that didn't listen. Okay? Let's not just focus in on the fact that people died. Let's focus on the fact that what did they do leading up to their death? They were disobedient. The storm is coming. Noah was building up his ark. And they sat up there and they laughed. Oh, I'm sure there were some people that said, we'll ride this thing out. And then death. So, please take heed to what I said today. Warn some people. Always do your research before you move into a place or move into a community. The story came out that a lot of those areas where flooding took place, that's because those areas were not meant to be built on. Know the history. Why are they selling this land for so cheap? Why is it that they're throwing these houses up so fast? Why is it that some of these houses are more sturdy than other houses? What's the history like? What happened during the last flood, during the last wildfire? A lot of times that bargain basement discount is because they already know. Government, architects, realtors, they already know. The person that doesn't know is the one that shows up with that check in hand, so desperate to own something. Well, that is it. Take heed. Please do check the description box for anything that is of interest. You've been listening to YouTube Interim Enterprise 7. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you haven't given, we do welcome donations. Blessings to you.